YouTube. What it is, it's your boy QDeezy, the double the easy. Another episode of All About Semis. How about your driver? I'm happy that you decided to come and join this video with me today. And I'm gonna give you guys some real good nuggets right here. You know, it's been a while since I've been sharing some really good nuggets. You know what I'm talking about? Nuggets gonna be so juicy. McDonald's, KFC, Zaxby's ain't got nothing on me. You know what I'm talking about? Man, so I hope you enjoy this, man, and I hope that this helps somebody out when we talking about these rates and surviving. So I did a short video on surviving this market, but I want to dive a little bit deeper into this rates situation, you know, because I find myself cringing more now when I'm hearing people say, man, you know, the rates are so bad, you can't make money out here in these rates now, there's no money to be made. I have to beg to differ there. And before y'all start grinding me up in the comments on this, hear me out. I'm not saying that it's not tough, because it actually is tough. Are the rates down? Absolutely they are down. But when you're having this conversation with somebody and you're indulging with somebody in this conversation that don't have enough experience or don't know enough about the industry or have been around long enough to understand the market, you're setting yourself up for disaster. So I'm gonna tell you, when I was with Landstar pre-pandemic, everybody was making money hand over fist. Things were great, right? And even people that were, you know, owner operators, leased on with companies, pandemic money was flowing left and right, and people said that, hey, the rates were great, they were better back then, everybody was making money, right? Now keep that in your mind, pre-pandemic. But I'll throw this in early. This ain't the first time that the market's crashed and the rates have been in the hole, right? Before we even got in, and I say we, I'm talking about us newcomers, before us new drivers came in on the game, these guys before us had already been through this. So now markets have changed, inflation have changed, the value of a dollar has changed, and here we are now. So when you say you can't make money in this market, when somebody says that to me, my next question to them is basically going to be, what do you mean? And they're going to say, well, because the things are down, the rates are down, you can't make money. And I'm again say, well, what do you mean? Elaborate on that. And most of the time when I say that to people, they can't elaborate it, because all they can come back with is, well, the rates are down. And I've done video about this before where I said it is not just about the rate. It's more than the rate, right? So to bring you back, when I was with Landstar, you know, Landstar had a certain rate. I always call those rates inflated rates, because back then, you know, Landstar was putting out $4 miles and $5, $6, $7 mile rates, and people were like, man, how's Landstar getting these rates? Well, the reality of that is, and I'm gonna have to probably save this for another video, but the reality of that is that they didn't have to pay you what the rate was anyway, because by the time your fees come out, your fuel come out, their percentage come out, that rate was always going to be lower than what you were actually looking at. So for simplicity, if it was a $3 load, by the time you factor in your fuel and Landstar's load, that rate probably was more closer to the low, you know, 190s, $2 a mile load, right? It's just simple analogy there. So when you look at the rate, and I'm looking at how you make money in this market, one of the ways you're going to make money in this market is, one, having consistent freight, right? Or consistent brokers, or working with consistent companies. Because even working off the spot market, if you're working with consistent companies off the spot market, you can do it. People say it's harder. Oh, it's so harder just living off the spot market. I'm gonna tell you, I've done it. Never had a problem. Never had a problem. I mean, outside of dealing with the low rate, whatever you deem that might be, I never had a problem. But having that consistency and having consistent brokers with freight and have you moving is number one key. If you got guys, and I know a lot of people that have been leased on, have been sitting more than they were moving, decent sized companies, you know, and it's like, okay, I'm not making no money, but y'all got me sitting, but y'all charging me these fees, and I got a slew of guys that I can just fill you in on with that can relate to this. Now, with that being said, okay, if the rates are down, fuel prices are down, the cost of living is down, you have to factor all that in when you're talking about your rates and saying that the rates are down. You know, you have to factor those things in. So back to my Landstar situation, when I was leased to Landstar, I had to still factor in whatever my cost was to operate, right? That's simple business, having to know how to factor in your costs. But I still have to keep that into play as to across the board. If all those numbers are down across the board, cost of living, fuel, and your rates, you have to be able to make money. I mean, it's just that's just the way things go. Yes, prices of fuel go up. Sometimes the rates are a little bit lower than what that cost per gallon is. But now it's about the consistency of what you're doing, because, and I was guilty of it. I did a video and I told you guys, man, sometimes I was just turning down lows because I'm like, man, I need this and I ain't, and now I'm sitting, right? We'll come back to that. But the trade-off here is this. When I was with Landstar, I was booking, running, booking, running, booking and running, and it was just like, it almost seemed like it was an endless cycle. I could book whenever I wanted, wherever I was at, and run, no problem. But here's the thing. If you got a guy that is leased onto a company, and he is booking a freight, booking his own freight, or even if he's not booking his own freight, and he runs a load for $5, say he making $2,000, he ain't went nowhere. I'm not gonna get into the numbers, we're just gonna use the main numbers here. So if he did a $2,000 load, he went, you know, 1,000 miles, simplicity. Everybody's like, oh, well, that's, you know, pretty decent money, but he was on it. But if I'm making that same money consistently with a broker, I might pick up and get off and pick up and get off. Like right now, perfect example. Thank you for that. Perfect example. Right now, as you guys know, I'm running pretty much Amazon right now. And I'm probably going to stay with Amazon and just run Amazon consistently, period. I'm not going to start changing anymore. And I'm going to do a whole nother video about Amazon. I just finished the video with Amazon. I got to upload, and I'm going to probably upload that first before I do this one. We'll upload this one. But the thing is, I understand that I make my money on the flow of money versus the rate of the money. Okay, did y'all catch that? I make my money on the flow of the money versus the rate of the money. So if I have to do a load that's, let's just hypothetically say I see a load and it's $1.50 a mile, and it's only going to have me on this load for 3 hours to 6 hours, I'm going to take that load and I'm going to grab another load right behind that with my consistent broker. Let's just say that's Amazon. And that was at a time where people were saying, you know, well, Amazon don't pay nothing, and Amazon is this, and Amazon freight is cheap. I want to tell you this. If you're just jumping on Amazon board and looking, you're probably going to see really cheap freight. And I've learned this from running with Amazon. When I first started running with Amazon, I had did Amazon nothing but 100% of the time. I was running Amazon, and I was always seeing great rates. I'm talking about 2 or better $3 mile loads. I'm looking, y'all, because I'm looking at the storm just started storming outside. But $3 or better, $2 above. And what happens is they know guys are not going to be consistent coming in and coming out. Amazon's one of those companies where you have to be consistent, and when you're consistent with them, you see a whole different board. Take my word for it. And it's the reason why I'm back running with them and going to stay consistent with them from this point moving forward. But I did a load, just to give you guys an example, on and off the load. I did a load last night. I picked up a load. It was 27 miles. It went it paid $300 for 27 miles. I might even go as far as posting this so you can see it, because I always want to show you guys 300 miles. While I was on that load, they called me. Now mind you, I booked that first load off their board, but while I was on this load, they called me and said, hey, do you got capacity? Could you do another one of these loads for us? This one's 47 miles. We'll give you another $300. Absolutely can do that. So I did that. And then, while lo and behold, another load popped up for another 20 miles, and that load paid another 200 and some change. So by the time I started the load at 12 o'clock, I booked it at 12, it picked up at 3 in the morning. By the time 8 o'clock came, I had already made $900, and I went home. I was like, you know what, I'm done, I'm home. Plus I needed the rest, it was 8 hours. So the consistency, I'm getting off and getting on. But you might got one guy that just picked up one load, and he's gonna be on it for probably a day and a half to make $1,000, and he had to put fuel in. I didn't burn any fuel. Consistency of the flow of the money you're bringing in. If you can get on and get off and get on and get off and get on and get off, you're better off taking a $1.30, $1.40 mile load if you're on and off of it. That's the point that I'm making here. And if the cost of the miles is relevant to the fuel prices, you have to factor that in. You just there's no getting around it. You have to factor what the cost of fuel is, right? Now, I can tell you from a consistency standpoint, all the way back to my Landstar days, when I sat and went through the numbers, I noticed that my rate, whatever that rate was, or the gross rate of that, my revenue per load was about 3 to 4, sometimes 5% of that cost was the fuel cost. So 3 to 5% of the load cost revenue, if you will, was fuel. So when I look at, okay, I could go, let's just say I can go back to Landstar, or I could go drive for somebody else and look at what they're making. I knew guys that have been bouncing to company because somebody told them, man, we get money over here, you can run and make this and that over there, but how hard are you going to work for that money? You know what I'm saying? How hard are you going to, you know, beat yourself up to make that extra money? And where are you going to, how far are you going to run to make that extra money? Because if you're going further to make that money, number one, you got to factor in the fuel cost, right? You have to factor in that fuel cost. So now, is it worth it? So when I look at it, somebody's trying to call in. When I look at it, I gotta say to myself, how hard am I going to work by trying to go to the higher dollar amount? You know, what is it going to be involved for me to make the higher dollar amount? You know, so when you finding yourself engaging in these conversations of the rates are down, and you're talking to people that really don't know how to operate anyway, you gotta pay attention to that. Things are always going to balance out somewhere. Like right now, fuel is down in Georgia, you know, and the rates are, I'm still seeing, you know, $2 a mile loads. I'm seeing that consistently on the board, on Amazon, on, you know, the DAT board, most of my brokers. I'm seeing that consistent at $2. So these rates are quote unquote down, when you say that, my question to somebody is, well, what were the rates before? What you have to have something to compare that to. So when you say the rates were up, my question to you was, well, what was the fuel prices then when those rates were up that you're talking about? What was the fuel prices then? You know, because you have to have something to compare it to. You know, if you're just simply saying, oh, well, I seen more $3-4 a mile loads on the board than I'm seeing now, well, that doesn't warrant the rate being down. What were they before? So when we look at where they are now, we are comparing that to the fuel costs, because that's always going to be your number one cost right there, is your fuel. So if I have to run based off of what the fuel cost is, now I have to change how I gotta run. I have to change how I gotta run. I can't be sitting on $1,000 load for a day and a half, 2 days. You see, I can't be, you know, staying on a $1,500 load for 2 days. You know what I'm saying? And running way out my way. I have to get off of that and get on. So in other words, to make it, you have to be you're better off doing short load delivery loads, paying a lower rate per mile and getting it in. So each 3 of those loads that I did for Amazon, right, they were on it for an hour and a half, 2 hours off, on it for an hour, 2 hours off, you see. And by the time, like I said, I looked up 6 o'clock or so, I was, you know, $1,000 up. Now, with that being said, now what was my average cost on that? What was my average? You got to look at what your average cost was. From the top of my head, I have to do it and calculate and put it on the screen. If I do what my average cost was per those loads, that's where you're going to make your money. That's when you look at what your rate actually is, because you could do a $1.50 load here and do a $2 load here, and then another $2 load there and another $1.50 load there. What is your average going to be? And your average is probably going to be closer to that $2 mark anyway, you know. But this comes with learning and understanding how to operate that truck. So it's about more than the rate. Always going to be about more than the rate. Now, with that being said, we're about 17 minutes in. I wanted to throw this in here and just kind of talk to that about it. Stop getting caught up on the race and start getting caught up on getting on and off these loads. Because when you're sitting, you ain't making no money. And no, I'm not telling you to run cheap freight. I'm not saying that. But right now, what is considered cheap? You know, like I told you guys, I already know what my bottom number is. And I think my bottom number, if I wasn't mistaken, was somewhere in the ballpark of about $1.15, $1.10 or something like that. With my bottom rate would be. I've never ran that. I've never ran a load for $1.10, $1.15. I'm always in the high, you know, $70, $70, $80s, $2 and above. So theoretically, if I'm making $1, simple math, 50 per mile, right? If I'm doing $1.50 a mile, I'm still making more than your average company driver. If you show me a company driver that's making $1 a mile consistent, then hey, you know, that's a rare job. But when you're looking at your Warners and your Swifts and these other beggar carriers where they're paying their guys on average $1, you know, they're paying them 30 cents a mile, 45 cents a mile, 42 cents a mile. Those kind of numbers is what I'm seeing on average. $1.50 doesn't seem that bad, right? It's bad when you are factoring every little bill that you have. I see guys sitting there saying, well, man, I got my house payment, my, you know, my wife's cell phone, my cell phone, and my car insurance, my car payment. We're talking about what is it costing you to run your business, your truck. Because without that, you can't make any money, right? So if you're factoring in your truck payment and all that, then there's a way to do that and make that still work. You know, I have to do a whole nother video on that. But what I'm saying is, again, and I did a video on this. If you guys look at about, it said it's more than the rate. If you look at those 2-part series that I got in my archives down there, I actually break this down. But like I said, my insurance on average was $2,000 a month. Well, that works out at the amount of miles I drive for the month. We you know, simple math, it was on the ballpark, I want to say about 8,000 miles or so, 8,000 to 12,000 miles for a month. It was only 10 cents a mile that went to the insurance. So out of that $1.50, we still got 40 cents left. Okay, now if you want to add your $2,000 house payment or whatever, your $2,000 truck payment, that's another 10 cents. Now you're 20 cents up. You know, it's 20 cents that you need, that's going to cover your insurance, that's going to cover your truck payment or your house payment at $2 grand. And I'm gonna leave it right there because again, I broke that down in the other videos. So I try not to get caught up in those conversations about rates with people that really don't understand. And again, I know some of you guys going to debate with me, and that's okay, because that's what this channel is about. You know, everybody voicing their opinion about how they make things work. But in this market, can you make money? Absolutely. Is it a little tougher to make money? Yes, it is, absolutely. But we have to adjust to the market. We can't let the market adjust us. We have to adjust to the market. And that's always going to determine how you run. And for me, I'm running with Amazon right now, and I'm being consistent, and I'm making money by being on and off the loads and still making the numbers that I need to make. And that's how you survive out here in this market. It's your boy QDeezy, the double the easy. You just watched another episode of All About Semi. Take this nugget, eat it, and run with it, baby. And I'll catch you on the next one.
Huh?